Okay, yeah, I know the backgrounds are different again, but when I got to the bar today, there was a tear across the middle of it. One side was overwhelmingly bright, and the other might as well have been a flaming hellscape. So either a paladin and a wizard had a fight that tore the fabric of reality apart in my bar, or the game gods are punishing me for walking away from yet another game instead of finishing it. And since there isn't a paladin trying to pay me back for the damages to my bar, I assume this is the latter. So, let's talk about Dawn of War 2 Chaos Rising? Dawn of War 2 was a success for Relic Entertainment. Although it wasn't as popular as the original Dawn of War, it still had a dedicated player base who enjoyed the smaller scope of its multiplayer, and the campaign was well loved. This success would see 2 expansion packs added to the game, with the first one being Dawn of War 2 Chaos Rising, coming out in March of 2010. As the title says, it's an expansion pack that would bring the forces of Chaos into the Dawn of War 2 sandbox, but it also added in a new campaign and game mode called Last Stand. Last Stand is basically Horde mode, where you and 2 others pick one of 5 hero units, which later was updated to 8 hero units in the Retribution expansion pack, and basically go against 20 waves of increasingly harder encounters. Then you level those heroes up and keep at it until you max out your hero's war gear and abilities. It was a popular game mode and people are still playing it to this day, though only on Retribution, as Chaos Rising only has the 5 heroes of a Space Marine Champion, Eldar Farseer, Orc Mech Boy, Tyranid Hive Tyrant, and Chaos Sorcerer. The campaign, however, is what we will be looking at today, as I have no one to play the multiplayer with me.
That's rough, buddy.
Chaos Rising's campaign is interesting from the get-go, bringing in 15 new missions, increasing your unit's level cap to 30, and allowing you to import your previous save from Dawn of War 2. However, if you didn't have a copy of Dawn of War 2, the game has a pre-built save file for you to play with. It will also allow you to reallocate a unit's stat points if you wish to fix mistakes you made from the previous campaign, or if you want to try something new. But let's not waste any time. Let's get into Chaos Rising and catch up with our Bloodraven strike force. Chaos Rising is set a year after the events of Dawn of War 2, with our strike force being reassigned to the battle barge Retribution, as our last battle barge got spit roasted by the Tyranid fleet. The Bloodravens spent the past year clearing out the last of the Tyranids and Orcs that remained after the First Aurelian Crusade. However, as we were doing what Space Marines do best, something popped up in the Aurelian subsector that caught everyone's attention. The planet of Aurelia has reappeared out of nowhere, a planet that the Bloodravens used to call home. However, it was swallowed up by a warp storm 1,000 years ago, and was pushed out of its normal orbit around its sun, turning the vibrant world into a snowbound hellscape. But what's more perplexing is that there's a Bloodraven's distress signal coming from the planet, so our strike force is being sent to investigate the strange signal and confirm that there were survivors.
Whoa!
Note, I know a lot of people are going to say, wait, weren't they trapped in the warp? Wouldn't that kill them? Not necessarily, and time moves differently in the warp, so it's plausible for there to be survivors for those who are wondering. As our strike force comes down, our drop pods apparently use 5th edition Deep Strike rules and scatter all over the place, leaving our commander and scout squad isolated. Once we blow up a fence and hit a supply crate... Wait, what the fuck is that? Oh, God. So, they changed how supply crates work. Instead of a universal resupply, we get randomized item-specific resupplies, meaning that a resupply crate can either carry explosive supplies, medical supplies, combat supplies, special supplies, and sometimes war gear. This change can be annoying, because if everything is left up to chance, you can go an entire mission without seeing a single resupply for something you desperately need. Need explosives to blow up bunkers? Get fucked, idiot! Here's your 50th medipack. Desperate for a heal? Nah, have your 13th grenade. Sure, this means you're gonna have to ration your supplies more, but it can be extremely frustrating if you are starving for supplies and the game is just not giving it to you. Anyway, back to the story. We soon come across an Imperial Guard platoon, which is weird because the world just came back out of the warp, meaning no one else should be here right now. Of course, these guardsmen turn out to be hostile, and after quickly dispatching them, we quickly regroup with our Devastator squad, and shortly after that, our Tactical squad. Turns out the traitor guard here is well entrenched, and not only that, use a falsified distress signal to lure us down here. We have to investigate that later, as in order to escape, we have to destroy a jamming tower that is stopping our Thunderhawk from picking us up. Once that tower is destroyed, we quickly make for a defensive position, and after the traitor guard throws a few waves at us, we are rescued by our gunship bombing the area and are taken back to the Retribution, where our commanding officer, returning Bloodraven's 3rd Company Captain Gabriel Angelos, congratulates us on surviving the ambush, but is sending us on another mission to the planet. Turns out there were 2 strike teams, and the second group is begging for help. Here, we are forced to take our assault squad and our dreadnought into battle, and oh god, what happened to our armory? Yeah, so remember the final battle we took part in at the end of Dawn of War 2? Turns out most of our shit didn't survive. Our Terminator armor is broken, and most gear that we have left is either completely underleveled for where we are, or is barely passable. Now, the good news is that some of our better gear survived, but if you're playing on Chaos Rising's campaign without an imported save, the war gear you get will always be the same. However, importing a previous save will bring over some war gear from there. However, I remember getting rid of the Gift of Mars armor in the main campaign, so I have zero clue how the game calculates what to keep and what to toss away. Either way, this means your squads are gonna feel bare naked for the time being. I'm not against this, honestly. It shows how a conflict with the Tyranids would leave a strike force starving for better weapons and armor, and seeing our old Terminator armor broken and just sitting there is a constant reminder of that, which I like. Don't appreciate that the next mission has us fighting Eldar, though. You know, the faction who has a psychic unit that can instantly kill most of our units? Well, the second mission has us drop into a hot zone, where the Eldar have pretty much wiped out the second strike force. We fight our way to the leader's body, but get ambushed by more Eldar in a grav tank. Until a new person comes in to save us. A librarian by the name of Jonah Orion, whose intro cutscene is bugged and the camera doesn't keep up with him mowing down Eldar squads. Kinda hindering the coolness factor a bit. Either way, our dreadnought is quickly replaced with Jonah, who is underleveled,
That's kinda small.
has no war gear outside of his basic shit, and whose only useful abilities let him cast twice before he has to sit and take a breather. Not a good first impression for our Psyker unit when a basic infantry squad is bullying him. I'll talk about him more when we are done with the mission. After recruiting Jonah, we are retasked to destroy an Eldar webway gate. Leaving our dreadnought behind to guard over the strike force's remains, we are forced through narrow ice canyons and entrenched Eldar positions. Though a few well-placed jumps from Thaddeus and some good smites from Jonah, we are able to fight our way there when...
Psychic power is building up. Quickly, destroy their access to the webway.
You are too late. The ancient souls have found their new homes. Rise, Wraith God. Destroy the humans.
Have you tried throwing Wraith Guards at them? That usually works.
Okay, so these things are just gonna keep haunting me on and off the tabletop, I guess. These tall and skinny bastards are Wraith Guard, a Terminator equivalent for the Eldar army. They were added into the sandbox to give the Eldar a more anti-everything unit. The downside is that the unit is slow, sucks in melee, and requires an Eldar Psyker to babysit them. However, their weapons can be fired on the move, and they do area of effect damage that knocks people back, so it's very easy for your units to get stun-locked, hence why I hate these things. Now, each army did get their own added units in Chaos Rising. The Tyranids got the Hive Guard and Genestealer units, the Eldar got Wraith Guard, the Orcs got the Weird Boy, and Space Marines got the Librarian. This was to help flush out their multiplayer rosters and give us a bit more interesting encounters. Granted, I feel like the Eldar should have gotten a stationary heavy weapons squad like the Dark Reapers, not the annoying Wraithguard unit, but we're stuck with this. So, after beating the shit out of some dead and alive Eldar, we quickly blow up their webway portal and then fight our way back to our dreadnought. Once we save him from the last Eldar ambush, we are taken back to the deployment screen. Turns out, from Thaddeus' experience and some info gathering on Angelos' part, the guardsmen who ambushed us in the first mission belonged to an Imperial noble family called House Vandis. If you don't remember from my previous review, Vandis was the Imperial governor of Meridian, who was arrested off-screen as he sabotaged not only our efforts to protect Meridian, but also the defenses of the planet itself. Turns out his house's militia had managed to go into hiding and are now causing problems again. Though, the main problem is brought up. How the hell did a militia group get Bloodraven's communication codes? It's not like those were just sitting around for anyone to take. So it's a mystery we'll have to sit on for now. But, let's talk about our new unit, Jonah. Jonah, like our force commander, is a single-person unit. His place in the strike force can be a ranged support unit, a melee tank, or a spell-casting glass cannon. Granted, he's a little under-leveled when you receive him, but they do give you an item to donate that levels him up instantly, and his stats are at level 20 when you do get him. So you can pretty much build him however you want from there. Usually, I build him to be a ranged support caster to deal with hordes and bunkers, but I have used him as a melee tank before, and he did quite well in that area. After getting Jonah settled into our strike force, we are quickly redeployed to Meridian, where the Vandis rebels have been stirring up trouble, with now Governor DeRosa informing us that the rebels are using orc looters to distract Imperial garrisons from the defense of Angel Forge. So we deploy down to the Forge's outskirts and begin the age-old tradition of stomping the orcs. However, when we engage the orc war boss in charge of this raid, he makes a comment about there being more Space Marines, which it's finally revealed to us who is leading the rebels.
Commander, Governor DeRosa here. We are receiving a distress call from inside the defensive ring.
We are under heavy fire from insurgent forces inside the perimeter. Heavy casualties. Make yourselves ready. The Blood Ravens will be here shortly.
What a twist!
Okay, so the poster boys of Chaos are here. Time to... Wait. What's that? Oh, that explains the tear in my reality. So, here's the big twist of Chaos Rising, the corruption mechanic. This is a major factor for the campaign, and you can choose how you wish to engage with it. Here we have two options. Either we can take to open the gate by taking a generator in an exposed position, or we could just blow the gate up, which they do mention would take the Chaos Marines by surprise, but leave Angel Forge exposed to further attacks. So I guess this tear is based on the two paths I went down. Despite what strategy you choose, you do get inside Angel Forge and chase down the Chaos Champion leading the assault, who is revealed to be Elithos the Inheritor, a returning antagonist from Dark Crusade. For those that don't know, Elithos led the Wordbearers faction in Dark Crusade, but since the Blood Ravens were the canonical winners of that game, we thought he got killed. Turns out that wasn't the case, and Elithos is back to haunt us, saying how excited he is to not only see us, but also how he wants a rematch with Davian Thule. Before we can introduce him to the teeth end of our chainsword, though, he leaves, forcing us to fight a Chaos Dreadnought, which we do kill. Getting back to the ship, Gabriel isn't happy to hear the forces of Chaos are attacking the Blood Ravens recruiting worlds, but orders us to go back to Aurelia, with DeRosa sending an Imperial Guard strike force with us to attack the Black Legion stronghold there. However, before we get going, Jonah informs us that we may have been affected by the powers of Chaos. And on Q, if you open up your squad menus, you see a progress bar that represents your corruption. Corruption, as I said before, is the main mechanic that's going to be hanging over your head through the whole campaign. Your squads will gain corruption by either allowing a mission to expire or completing specific objectives, using tainted war gear, or in other cases, a squad being left out of a mission can cause corruption. Now, of course, you're probably asking, why would I ever do or use those things to begin with? Well, there are benefits to doing corruption objectives or using corrupted war gear. For starters, remember how I said your armory is pretty bare? Well, tainted war gear inherently has better stats than regular stuff. A tainted chainsword is going to hit way harder than a regular one, and tainted armor will offer better protection, while corruption objectives can either help you find better war gear or help you complete a mission faster, which of course gets you bonus experience. As well, the more corruption your units get, they will begin to unlock special chaotic abilities that affect not only the squad itself, but can unlock global abilities depending on who you bring to a mission. For example, by corrupting Tarkus and his tactical squad, they give a global ability where you can target one friendly unit who can reflect ranged damage onto the unit attacking them, while maxing out the corruption makes your tactical squad into a Plague Marine squad, whose tactical advance ability becomes Plague of Flies, reducing incoming ranged damage to almost nothing while healing Tarkus, while your Force Commander gets better AoE attacks and a global ability that revives any downed squad and reinforces them. These are some pretty nifty abilities to experiment with and explore, honestly. However, if you stay pure, your units get new abilities that range from active to passive. For example, when using the commander's Warcry ability, if a demon unit happens to be in range of it, that demon will get stunned. Or in the case of Cyrus and your scout squad, med packs go from a resource you have to ration to being an energy-based ability when equipped, meaning that Cyrus becomes your de facto medic when deploying him. However, if you reach the first level of corruption, you lose out on these purity abilities. Of course, you can decrease corruption by doing redemption objectives or using redemption war gear that is either slightly weaker than tainted war gear or forces the unit to take more damage when deployed. We will have to see how these abilities pan out as we go into the next mission, where once our strike force hits the ground, we help push back Chaos forces that are pressing the Imperial Guard. Then as we press onto the Chaos forces main base, the Imperial Guard staging area starts getting bombarded by enemy artillery. If you let the base get destroyed, that will corrupt your squads. But you kinda don't want to ignore this secondary objective anyway, as by capturing the comms array guiding the artillery, you not only get the new artillery ability, but you also get a global artillery ability for the rest of the mission. After capturing the array, we are contacted by the Chaos Forces leader, Aragast the Pillager, who goes about introducing himself while mocking us. However, it's also revealed here that we're betrayed! Yep, someone within the Blood Ravens chapter has betrayed us, and handed over not only our security codes, but they also gave Aragast enough information to stay one step ahead of us, meaning that Aragast and his forces knew we were coming, hence why they were able to catch the Imperial Guard flat-footed. And once we destroy the Chaos Temple, it turns out to be a trap to let more Chaos energies onto Aurelia, corrupting the world more, and the Imperial forces have to flee. Once we get back from the mission, Gabriel informs us that the Black Legion has launched further attacks. We also listen to the traitor's message again to get more context, but it's encrypted and the voice is masked, so we aren't able to get much. From here, this is where we are given a bit more freedom to tackle these missions in any order we want, with an optional mission popping up on Meridian that if you don't bring Thaddeus into the mission, he gains corruption. However, it's usually the best idea to do every mission you can, as if you don't, you're missing out on experience and potential war gear drops. Don't stress it though, the game will tell you if an optional mission is about to expire, and gives you more than enough time to tackle them all. After helping Meridian again, I opted to go to Typhon. The mission here reunites us with Tech Marine Martellus, who we thought got killed during the final battle in the main campaign. Here, we deploy and find that Martellus is already under attack by the Black Legion. Once we secure the area and revive him, Martellus informs us that the array we repaired from the main campaign captured some interesting data, hence why he is protecting it. So the mission becomes holding out against waves of Chaos forces and Orc forces that start flooding into the area. One of the cool things about Chaos Rising is that the locations we fight in are some of the one-off missions we played in the main campaign. Like here, this is the same mission location we had to repair the astronomic array. However, its terrain has been changed due to a year of non-stop conflict and the Tyranids' failed attempt at terraforming the area. We also return to places like Angel Forge and so on. This is something I really like because we can see how far these areas have deteriorated or that they were under reconstruction before it became a war zone again. Back to the mission. As we hold out against the constant assaults, Martellus tells us that he could overcharge the array to send out shockwaves that would slow and cripple the enemy assaults. However, it could damage the array if you order it, so doing it will cause corruption. Whether you do so or not, the mission eventually throws a Plague Marine boss at you. He isn't that dangerous on his own, but he brings with him some toxic clouds that damage units hanging out in them, and plague grenades that will instantly kill most units. So just stay on the move and you should be fine. After killing the Plague Marine, we bring Martellus back to the Retribution, and with him being back, he repairs all of our damaged war gear, meaning we get our old suits of Terminator armor back. But 2 of them are shit and can't keep up with the damage the enemy's putting out. We also can learn how Martellus survived his Thunderhawk being shot down, and depending on how corrupted your squads are, the conversation's tone can change.
Just how did you survive, Martellus?
Yes, a good question.
As you may recall, I was aboard a Thunderhawk during the climactic battle with the Tyranids.
I also recall it being blown from the sky.
A Thunderhawk is a resilient craft. Instead of destroying us outright, the Tyranid attack sent us into a desperate dive into the jungle. My brother pilot used all his experience to guide us into the highlands, where the infestation was less severe. He did not survive the crash landing. I was left alone. No transmitters survived, and my own cybernetic enhancements were severely damaged. It took me months to successfully enact the repair rites to regain my mobility. I spent the rest of the past year battling my way through to the astronomic array.
Your perseverance does the chapter proud, Martellus.
Perhaps. But I am glad to be in the confines of a mighty strike cruiser once more.
Tell us, Martellus, how did you cheat death?
Yes, a good question.
As you may recall, I was aboard a Thunderhawk during the climactic battle with the Tyranids.
I also recall it being blown from the sky.
I spent the rest of the past year battling my way through to the astronomic array.
Would that our weapons were keener and our armor stronger, so we could destroy the evils we face without losing our brothers.
War is hell.
After rescuing Martellus, we are given an optional mission to stop the Eldar from resurrecting an Avatar of Cain. If you don't bring Tarkus, he gains corruption, as he has a hate boner for the Eldar. But the next actual mission is on the desert world of Calderas, where a platoon of Bloodraven's recruits has come under attack by the Black Legion, using the same tactic that the traitors used back in the first mission to lure our recruits in. If Cyrus doesn't deploy, he gains corruption, as these are recruits he personally trained over the last year, so he feels responsible for their safety. Getting down onto the planet, the mission can be extremely frustrating if you aren't prepared for it. You have to keep, at maximum, 10 scouts from dying. If you don't, you gain corruption. The problem with that is scouts are light infantry going up against tanks, walkers, and heavy weapon squads, meaning you have to be really fast and hyper-aggressive if you want to protect the scouts from getting maimed. Or you could be a dick and just watch them get slaughtered. There's always that option. Once all the scouts are saved or killed, you will be forced to fight a Chaos Sorcerer who is leading the raid. This guy is a pushover most of the time, but his Doombolt ability can instantly kill most units if you aren't careful. So just space out, have your Force Commander go bully him, and eventually the Sorcerer will put up a barrier which ends the fight. But instead of teleporting away or ending the mission, a new character comes in and kills the Sorcerer, with the new character being revealed as Captain Apollo Diomedes, who is captain of the Honor Guard and is the Chapter Master's right-hand man. Apollo's strike force quickly establishes order, and after getting the gist of the situation, he orders us to return to our ship, orders the scout sergeant who called for aid to gather whoever is left and return to Calderas' capital, and finally that no one who participated in this mission is allowed to talk about it. We also get a peek at an apothecary walking around who is radiating some strange aura, and if your squads are corrupted, your units give off the same aura that the apothecary was giving off, showing that something is very clearly wrong here. Getting back to our cruiser, Gabriel contacts us and recommends we leave Calderas immediately. The reason being is that Diomedes is issuing a stand-down order to all Blood Ravens on Calderas, and is getting ready to abandon the Aurelian sector. The reason being is that the Blood Ravens chapter master apparently dislikes contact with the Black Legion, and has ordered the chapter or its companies to pull out of a conflict zone where the Black Legion are operating in. Okay, that's sus as hell. Of course, your strike force is shocked that they would even be ordered to abandon their recruiting worlds, but we are handed an excuse to leave by Martellus, revealing the array data he got revealed something. Turns out, the array was tracking a space hulk called the Judgment of Carrion, which at first shouldn't interest us at all, but Martellus points out that those who board the space hulk in the past reported there was a special computer on board. A special computer that can help us decode the traitor's message and reveal who they are. So with that settled, we head to the Judgment of Carrion's location, which I'll let the scene speak for itself.
Your cursed ship is hiding, Tech Marine.
Hold your tongue, Avidus, and open your eyes.
The Judgment of Carrion.
Oh, ominous!
Getting close to the Space Hulk, Cyrus reveals that he is looking into the traitor a bit more as well, with his investigation finding that the traitor is among our strike force, as the message was sent using our ship's communications, which is alarming, because it could be anyone on the ship. It could be Tarkus. It could be Jonah. It could even be you! Nah, it's not you, but the mystery thickens. However, we have to board the Space Hulk to help solve it, so let's get aboard already. Now, the Judgment of Carrion is a Space Hulk, as I said, meaning we will be fighting inside a spaceship for this mission. So this means in the confines of the ship, we can't use certain abilities. Jump packs, artillery, and drop pods can't be used inside the Judgment of Carrion, limiting what your units can bring ability and equipment-wise. This means you have to be a bit smarter with how you control crowds and swarms, and means that Thaddeus is useless outside of Terminator armor. Not only that, but we are on a timer for this mission, as the Space Hulk is a warp-infused mess, and we are exposing ourselves to it. Staying on board for too long will corrupt your squads. However, Judgment of Carrion is where I am going to get into redemption and corruption, and the problems with it. So, due to the nature of how Dawn of War 2 systems work, it is far easier to stay loyal, along with it being far more optimal. The reasons being is that if you want to do full corruption, depending on weapon drops, you could get entirely screwed out of Tainted War Gear, meaning that you have to rely on doing secondary objectives to get corrupted. Which sucks, because some missions either don't offer you a corruption option, the corruption objective forces you to miss out on special abilities or upgrades, or require you to waste time and fuck over your mission completion rewards. Man, I fucking love just sitting here for 20 minutes to complete an optional fucking objective. Oh, I just need to bleed more all over the floor, you know? As well, becoming corrupted means your squad abilities will start to only affect themselves or hinder allies. If I use my commander's charge ability, it stuns anyone he runs into except allies. However, if you corrupt your force commander, then his allies are affected by his charge attack, meaning that if I charge an enemy unit trying to stun them while my force commander was in the middle of my own group, my other squads can't capitalize on the disruption because they also got stunned. Or it fucks over entire builds, like with how I built my tactical squad. My tactical squad has an ability called Tactical Advance, which at the cost of movement speed reduces oncoming damage, and my unit can't be suppressed. With how I built my tactical squad, they were able to hand out that buff to nearby squads. But when fully corrupted, Tactical Advance doesn't work anymore, and it makes my build completely useless. Staying pure, however, means that you get access to incredible weapons and armor, along with your abilities improving damage against the forces of chaos. Remember when I said that your Force Commander's Warcry ability stuns Chaos Demons? Well, for some reason, demons include Chaos Dreadnoughts, meaning that you not only shut down some pretty scary melee units, but also a pretty heavy-duty tank unit. Along with Cyrus being able to use stim kits for energy cost, Jonah having a free healing ability, Thaddeus and his squad healing on jump attacks or teleports, corrupting your squads just doesn't seem worth it. Along with the fact that if you get corrupted enough, you lose access to Davian Thule, meaning you are screwed out of an extremely tough unit. Not only that, but some abilities feel more like nerfs than actual abilities. Level 1 corruption for your squads either makes health or energy regeneration minimal, but you get it back through kills, which kills don't restore enough to really help you recharge your units or heal them, along with some abilities feeling entirely useless. Like, Avidus gets an ability that for the cost of some health, he gives off an aura that damages enemy units who are near him. The far-ranged heavy weapons squad gets an ability that damages units who are near him, meaning that he isn't doing his job and is probably getting fucked over in melee. While Tarkus gets an ability that reduces cooldown on corrupted abilities, but increases wait times on other abilities. Which just comes down to the overall problem of choosing corruption. If the numbers aren't in your favor, you have to do secondary objectives that hinder you more often than they help you. Your corruption abilities can be duds or fuck over an entire build for your squad, locks you out of way better war gear, and screws you out of your sole tank unit, therefore limiting your options. Sure, the global abilities are broken, but I wouldn't need them if my healing and energy regens weren't being screwed over. Okay, where were we? Right. So, once we get aboard the Judgment of Carrion properly, the mission requires you to find data slates so you can access the special computer. Along the way, you will find dead blood ravens, and on some of them is their gene seed, showing that an apothecary was probably leading these marines. As we find more bodies and slates, we slowly start putting together that something is very wrong with the blood ravens, as the dead marines here are still listed on active duty in the Honor Guard, with the leader of this doomed expedition of marines being Apothecary Galen. Oh, quick thing, in the back right corner of the map is a crate. Destroy it, and you get a set of Terminator armor. Once we get enough data slates, we are pushed into a boss fight with the Tyranid Hive Tyrant, and after we kill it, we get an audio log from Galen. Galen talks about how his squad is dead or dying, and that the squad is being pursued or haunted by a daemon known as Ulcair. Sadly, we don't get much else, and once we get out of the Space Hulk, shit has gotten worse around the sector. Not only is the capital of Meridian under attack, but Aragast is using the codes he got to declare a challenge to the Blood Ravens. This would be stressful if the game didn't give us more than enough time to do every mission. If we are forced to pick one mission over another, this would mean a lot more, but since we can do every mission with enough time to spare, I don't feel the dire desperation of the situation. The two optional missions bring us back to the Judgment of Carrion, and the other send us back to Meridian. Jonah gains corruption if you don't bring him aboard the Judgment of Carrion's optional mission, due to him wanting to honor his librarian oath, and you not bringing him fucks over that oath. While if you let Meridian fall, then it corrupts all your squads, because chaos will just take over the capital world of the Aurelian subsector. You do get some good rewards doing these missions, but the more interesting one is an item called Galen's Journal. Using it corrupts all your squads, but you learn what exactly happened to Galen and his squad, but I will reveal that information later. For now, once all the side missions are done, we head back to Aurelia to challenge Aragast. Now, Avidus gains corruption if you don't bring him, because he is sick to death of Aragast's trolling. As well, the mission makes it clear that if you use the mechanic of falling back, you gain corruption. So this mission is forcing you, if you are doing a purity playthrough, to really think things through so you don't get put into a position where you need to retreat. While a corruption playthrough, you won't really care. The main point of this mission is that you are chasing after Aragast, as he is constantly teleporting away trying to test you. However, when you finally pin him down and he tries to teleport once again, Elephas, who was the one teleporting Aragast around, turns on his lord and refuses to save him, leaving him to be killed by us and allowing Elephas to take over the warband. This is massively concerning, because if Elephas is making his move now, then his plan is probably coming closer to fruition. But the situation gets worse when we receive a priority call from the Honor Guard. While we were securing Meridian and fighting Aragast, Gabriel told us he was going to go talk to Diomedes to discuss and challenge the orders of abandoning our recruiting worlds. Guessing the conversation ended in disaster, because Gabriel and half of the Third Company were declared traitors, leading us to have to head back to Calderas, but only after another log from Galen reveals that Galen and his squad found a librarian on the Judgment of Carrion named Kyras, the same guy who is the current chapter master of the Blood Ravens. Uh-oh. Getting to Calderas, it's revealed that the codes hiding our traitor's identity is the same as the Honor Guard's personal codes, meaning if we get the Honor Guard's codes, we can reveal the traitor. Of course, the problem is that we will have to get past our fellow Blood Ravens, who are guarding the base with the codes. If you're doing a full purity playthrough, you will also need to hunt down and find Galen, who is clearly corrupted by chaos, while you gain corruption if you kill your fellow Blood Ravens. You can avoid fighting your fellow Marines by blowing up special generators that cause them to fall back to other defensive positions, allowing you to sneak by unnoticed. If you do hunt Galen down, he reveals that not only was he possessed by a demon, but the Honor Guard is entirely corrupted by chaos, except for Diomedes, who is just blind to the truth and is just ignorant to the corruption around him. How this guy just misses his fellow Marines using Chaos War gear and doing chaotic shit is beyond me, but it gives you free reign to kill the Terminator unit that's accompanying Diomedes during his boss fight. However, this mission has a few endings, depending on how you go about things, but it usually revolves around sparing or killing Diomedes. Should you kill Galen and destroy the base, you can convince Diomedes to let you go, as you have enough proof to show him that something is very wrong with the Blood Ravens. Destroying the base but not killing Galen will leave Diomedes to be corrupted by chaos. Killing Diomedes will have you labeled as a full traitor by chapter command. Depending on what you do here will affect the ending of Chaos Rising, alongside how far your corruption has gone. However, you will get the Honor Guard's codes, which will give us the traitor's identity once we reach Aurelia, as we have figured out that Elephas' plan is to release a demon that was bound inside of Aurelia. Now, when we get to Aurelia, the traitor's identity is revealed, which the traitor turns out to be the most corrupt member of your strike force, meaning this twist is entirely decided by you and who you choose to fuck over. In this case, for my two playthroughs, My Purity playthrough saw Avidus being the traitor, while my Corruption playthrough made Jonah the traitor. However, everyone is a possible traitor except your character and Davian Thule, which you will get the reasons for your squad mate's betrayal before going into the mission. The next mission has you hunt down the traitor in the same area we started this campaign in. Here, the forces of chaos have patrols and secondary bases that are protecting the traitor. So the goal is to sneak around, kill and destroy all the patrols and bases before you go take on the traitor. Should a patrol get away, or if you don't destroy a base fast enough, reinforcements will be called and the mission gets much harder, as demons and tanks will pursue you. However, as you go through the mission, the traitor will go into detail what started them down this path. Each reason is unique and ties into the consequences of Dark Crusade and Soulstorm campaigns, but also the consequences and hopelessness some members felt near the end of the main campaign of Dawn of War 2. But each traitor will reveal that the final straw for their betrayal was due to Kyras convincing them to help Elephas and Alcair, incriminating Kyras fully for his heresy. Now, fighting the traitor can be a bit of a chore. Remember that this is a guy you leveled up, meaning he gets all the abilities and stats you gave him while also being souped up by the powers of chaos. But this can be a pretty easy fight to cheese depending on who goes traitor. Either way, the traitor gets put down and you will get a special item from them that, once you donate, it gives you an enhanced item that is good against the forces of chaos or just a better weapon or suit of armor. But let's talk about Kyras first before we go into the final mission. Now, Kyras has been in the background of Dawn of War since the very start. However, he is first mentioned in Dawn of War Dark Crusade, but isn't named. His whole story is that he was the student of the Blood Ravens chapter master 1,000 years ago, basically being groomed for the position of chapter master himself. Kyras was there the day Aurelia was attacked by the demon Alcair and his demonic legions, and he, along with a quarter of the chapter, got trapped on Aurelia during the invasion. Now, the chapter master and his surviving librarians tried to bound Alcair inside the chapter keep, but they all died, leaving Kyras to do it alone, and, well, he succeeded, but he got stuck in the warp, and that usually doesn't go very well for one's sanity, especially if your only company is the voice of the asshat who you just imprisoned. This slowly began to corrupt Kyras, and eventually the young librarian fell into the worship of chaos, with him eventually managing to escape Aurelia onto the Judgment of Carrion, where he was found by Galen and his expedition, who themselves were lost inside the Space Hulk and were shocked that someone not only survived, but escaped Aurelia. Over time, Kyras corrupted the expedition's forces, and if you read Galen's logs, reveals that it was Kyras who betrayed Galen and had him possessed by a demon. Later, the expedition would be saved, and although Gabriel and Davian Thule were suspicious of Kyras, it didn't stop the supposed Miracle Kid from rising through the ranks with the help of a possessed Galen to becoming chief librarian and chapter master. This would lead to the events of Dark Crusade and Soulstorm, where Kyras is trying to corrupt his chapter to chaos, putting them through wars that force them to question their faith, place in the universe, or exposing them to the rot of the Imperium and how hypocritical it is. The problem became, however, that once Aurelia came under attack by the Black Legion, a group who knew he was a traitor, and Elephas, who he thought was an ally betraying him. It's the only reason we found out about all this, which basically led to a chapter civil war. You either side with Gabriel, or you side with Kyras, with many not knowing that they had to pick a side, or a side was already chosen for them. Well, we are at the final mission anyway, and depending on your actions through the campaign, Gabriel will either be happy to see you, or tell you to your face that you're scum, and that the only reason he isn't killing you right now is that Elephas takes priority. Either way, this leads into the final mission, where you are to guide 2 Predator tanks to wipe out one of 2 Chaos bases to clear the way for a major assault. You can take your time here, as this is the final mission, and if you're doing a full Purity playthrough, you want to make sure Bloodraven's casualties are kept to a minimum. So if that's your goal, take the time to use your Predators to clear out the map of threats to the main assault. Once one of the two bases is destroyed, Gabriel's strike force and yours will land, and eventually you will be tasked to go after Ulcair by Gabriel. However, before you can get to Ulcair, Elephas shows himself and delays you. This bastard is entirely built to waste your damn time, as he will teleport out of the area, use stunning attacks, and summon Chaos Shrines to either boost his damage, heal him, or be used as a makeshift turret. This is because with every Bloodraven that dies, Ulcair gets chunks of health added onto his health bar. The longer you take in beating Elephas, the more Ulcair heals. Once you do beat Elephas, however, he teleports out again before you can kill him, but you are free to fight Ulcair. This final battle is fucking rough. You thought the final boss of the main campaign was too easy? Well, here's Ulcair to make up for it. This bastard does damage standing near him, will hook one of your squads and pull them into melee with him, throw up on them to cause massive damage in a directed flamethrower attack, and has a massive stomp attack that anyone caught in it will be knocked back, stunned, and take extra damage from chaos units, which he will summon into the arena to help him, such as Plague Marine units and Dreadnoughts. This battle is extremely annoying if you're trying to do it normally. My plan, however, is just to drop an orbital bombardment on his head, let it drain and chunk his health, then go in and finish him off with the spamming of every ability I have. Once we defeat Ulcair, we are taken to the ending of Chaos Rising, which the game has a total of 5. The full Purity ending has you basically be the super pure boy of the chapter, and you convince Diomedes of Kyras' corruption. The pure ending sees you and Gabriel as renegades who will lead the civil war against Kyras to save the soul of the Bloodravens. The exile ending, where you and your strike force are exiled into a penance crusade. The execution ending, where you get killed by Gabriel for being a corrupted shitstick. And finally, the full traitor ending, where you take over the Black Legion warband in Aurelia and are a third player in the Bloodraven Civil War, with the game's full ending revealing that Elephas was captured by Abaddon the Despoiler, who had a hand in all of this mess. And that's Chaos Rising.
Okay, first, what? Second, the
Chaos Rising is interesting as an expansion pack. The campaign is 15 missions long if you choose to do everything, or only 11 if you do main missions only. It also brought a new war gear like Meltaguns, Lightning Claws, las cannons, and grenade launchers, with the missions being good experiences and the story being a fun expansion to the Bloodraven storyline. However, the main gimmick of the corruption mechanic feels not very well thought out, with decisions not having real consequences to the story or gameplay outside of taking away your dreadnought and one of your squads, with the story only changing dialogue that usually ends in the same way. Further, this really only confused the Bloodraven story, as for years, we never really knew who was the canonical traitor in Chaos Rising. Thanks to the books, people thought it was Martellus, but in Retribution, it's confirmed by a loyal Tarkus that Avidus was the canonical traitor. Later on, due to the events of Dawn of War 3, it would be confirmed the Bloodravens were the winning faction in Retribution. However, the mystery was never solved on what happened to Thaddeus and the Force Commander after the events of Chaos Rising. It's implied, but never said, it may have been the exile ending for them, but it's never been confirmed. Either way, Chaos Rising is a fun expansion, and if you can get a friend to join you in the campaign, it can be a fun and short experience. Hell, due to how short the campaign is, it does allow for multiple runs, and although I don't like the corruption mechanic entirely, it does allow for unique playthroughs. I just think the corruption mechanic should have been a better balancing act, and that you should be put on the spot for your decisions, making it clear that not every mission can be completed, and that corruption objectives should not just be wasting your time. It should be showing why the path of chaos is easy to go down. Simple and quick solutions are not always the best idea, and that your actions should have consequences that aren't just verbal confrontations. Either way, that is Chaos Rising. I recommend getting it if it's on sale and you already own Dawn of War 2. Buying it standalone means you are screwing yourself out of the main campaign. Now, by the time this video is posted, I'll be at the Edmonton Warhammer Open, so if you see me there, come say hi. When not in the game, I'll be walking around the convention. However, once I get back, I'll be making a video on my experience at the event, which will take a bit, so this is the last video of June! So if you want to see my videos early, subscribe to the Patreon. It's only $5 a month, and you also get an exclusive series of videos and can vote on what we talk about next. Or, if you can't afford to, don't stress about it. Your money is important, and you should always take care of yourself first. But sharing my video around, commenting, and subscribing is just as helpful. But until then, everyone, I'll see you all at the Edmonton Open.